One person every 5 hours is diagnosed with brain cancer, unfortunately taking lives of more adults under 40 and children under 10 than any other disease. And sadly, for one of our own, assistant coach for the Penrith Panthers and All-Stars Māori coach Ben Gardiner, that statistic became all too real when his sister Sandra received the diagnosis of a brain tumour. Ben, for you, you're at the peak of your career in New Zealand at the All-Stars camp when you received that call.
Yeah, got a phone call from my mum. My sister had been sick for a long period of time, and mum basically said that I needed to come home. Things were getting pretty bad for my sister. So she'd been diagnosed with brain cancer in about May the year before, which was her second bout of having a tumour. So she'd had a tumour about 5 years prior to that, which was benign, and she was able to fight that off and get back into normal everyday life. But this time around it wasn't the same case. It was a malignant tumour, one that was incurable. And so, all the way along through that period of time, my sister had said to me, I want you to keep doing the things that you're doing. And I was lucky enough to go to the World Cup, and I asked her, would you like me to go or stay with you? She said, no, you've got to go. And I was lucky she was a coach like me, so she coached netball and loved netball and loved all sports like I do. Went to the World Cup, and then when the All-Stars came up, my sister wasn't well enough to sort of be able to give me an answer. So my dad gave me the answer this time, and he said, you need to go and we'll let you know if anything changes. And unfortunately my mum had to call me on the Thursday night prior to the game and said, I think that you might need to come home, which was a pretty difficult decision for me. And thankfully my dad then rang me and he said, look, no, you need to stay.
Congratulations to both teams. Whilst Māori will be disappointed, they can hold their heads high.
Straight after the game on the Saturday night, they got me a car and they'd organised for me to go to the airport. So I raced off to the airport and got on the first plane out the next morning and was able to go and spend a few more days with my sister. So.
And your sister also did something pretty special for the Mark Hughes Foundation as well.
Yeah, she did. She gave her brain to the Mark Hughes Foundation. Probably about 6 months before she passed away, she knew the relevance of what was going on. So she was still at a stage where she could make good decisions for herself. And she said, I need to give my brain to the Mark Hughes Foundation so that they can do something about this disease. It was difficult for us because we sort of knew in that period that things were coming to an end, and she knew that as well. But she knew that things would be better if she was able to help other people along the way, and hence why I'm sitting here talking about it, because I promised her that I would push along with that cause and make sure that people that were going through this situation in the future won't go through the same thing that she did and our family had to go through.
Because at the moment it's 5% of the government money goes towards it.
Yeah.
But probably one of the biggest killers.
Yeah, I think if we didn't have the Beanie for brain cancer around, people wouldn't really know that much about brain cancer. It's sort of the silent killer. There's no cure. There's a lot of research being done on it. I think something like 25% of people get to the 5-year mark, meaning 75% of people don't get to that mark. What the Mark Hughes Foundation has done in the Beanie for brain cancer around is that it's allowed people to understand, well, yes, there is research going on for brain cancer, but at the same time, we're not finding a cure. So the more education that we can have and the more education that we can put out to society, people will start to understand a little bit better, what it's about, where the research is going, where the funding's going, and where do we need to have more funding to help other people down the track.
Prior to your sister having brain cancer, even with the first time, did you know much about it?
When it was pronounced that it was cancerous, we were pretty lost, because my mum and dad, her partner, her son, didn't know what to do or who to go to. So it was a pretty difficult time for our family, yeah.
How did it work for you as a family unit at the time? You were obviously sort of all help caring at the time.
My sister's partner pretty much had to work the whole time and look after their son, which all families have to do. So mum and dad sort of had to chip in on that side of it, along with aunties and uncles and those people, but mostly mum and dad. So we needed to find a way to get some more help.
The Mark Hughes Foundation beanies on every player's head as they take the field this round.
I suppose that's what drew me to the Mark Hughes Foundation. So I had a conversation with Mark Hughes. In 20 minutes he was able to probably give us more information about the day-to-day doings of brain cancer, and Mark was good enough and the Mark Hughes Foundation were good enough to allow Alicia from the Mark Hughes Foundation to talk to my mum and sort of lead her in a direction that would actually give my mum some ideas of where to go next and what to do next. So we're forever thankful to the Mark Hughes Foundation, Mark himself, and especially Alicia for the help that she was able to give my mum throughout that stage.
It's an amazing thing that your sister's done to create such a massive legacy once she's gone.
It doesn't surprise me that she would do that. My sister loved the sport. She loved Parramatta, which I won't hold against her. To be able to give her brain to the Mark Hughes Foundation for further research to try and help them try and find an answer and a cure for this awful disease. It's just the hugest legacy that you could leave behind.
It sounds like you had an amazing bond, but what did she say to you when you signed her Penrith when you were?
She only ever wanted the best for me, so she was stoked for me. We're both coaches and teachers and had a lot in common, so if I can just do a small amount to try and help her cause along the way, we've got to look forward and we've got to try and find a way to cure this terrible disease.